Remember, folks, I'm just a Muppet in a chair. Don't take me seriously. Hello, my lovely Muppeteers. How we doing today? It's good to see you. Welcome back. Got a reaction for you today. This is Why Do the British Look Down on Americans? Now, I could think of a plethora of reasons. Some of them are warranted. Some of them not so much. But I feel like this is going to be... I clicked on this without knowing anything about Nathaniel Drew, who put this video together. But I feel like this is going to be sort of an investigative video of some sorts. Now look, being American, and yes, this channel caters heavily towards the UK audience, which I like. I like interacting with people from the UK. It's fun. But I have, over the course of the past 2 years or so, gotten quite a lot of hate. But it's much more positive than the hate. A lot of it's just banter, but you do get those who, I guess, hate watch in some sort of way, or just don't cease to take the opportunity to leave something negative about me being American on the channel. I'm used to it by now. But, you know, it does happen. I've even gotten a comment or two. So every once in a long while, I'll see a comment like, yeah, I can't stand Americans except for you Muppet, something like that, you know, which is fine. I usually can't stand most of my neighbors anyway, but let's find out what this video is all about. Why do the British look down on Americans? I can think of a few reasons, which, again, some of it's warranted, some of it's not, some of it's stereotypical, but let's find out. Like, subscribe, do whatever you guys want, and I'll leave a link for Nathaniel Drew's channel in the description below this video in case you want to check him out for your own. All right, here we go. Let's find out some stuff.
How do you feel the British perceive Americans?
I feel like there's quite a lot of, I hate to say it, but mockery involved.
I think a lot of people think Americans are extreme.
Do you think that the British think that they're better than Americans?
I think some do, yeah.
There's a lot to make fun of, I think.
We're also fantastic at queuing as well. That's another great thing about us.
Rubbing me the wrong way because they're too extra. It doesn't seem like it's genuine.
Today, I am in London to get to the bottom of a very important question. For as long as I can remember, I have had the sense that the British look down on Americans. This is a generalization, and therefore doesn't apply to everyone, but it's a strong enough trend that I felt I needed to investigate this further. Here's a quote from Prince Harry's memoir, Spare, that perfectly captures the feeling that I have about this. With some, the anti-American sentiment ran very hot. I was reminded of my childhood, when people warned me all the time about Americans. Too loud, too rich, too happy, too confident, too direct, too honest.
Wait! Did you say too rich? Harry? Prince Harry? Of all people? Said that Americans are too rich? Have you walked around this motherfucker? That obviously he's never taken a stroll down the west side of Baltimore.
Hot.
I gotta hear that again.
Of my childhood, when people warned me all the time about Americans. Too loud, too rich, too happy, too confident, too direct, too honest. I'm very curious.
You fucking Harry, man. And isn't he here? Look, I don't keep up with the royal family like some people do, but isn't he here now with his wife, who's causing all the trouble and stuff? Is he here? Can we send him back? Can we send him back over there? Oh my God, Prince Harry is calling Americans too rich. I mean, the quote was, he was warned by other Brits about how Americans are too rich. Oh my God, most of us are not. Unbelievable! I can't believe my ears. That was the first minute of the video. Wow. Okay, but okay, Harry, Mr. Spare. All right, let's continue.
Curious what people are going to have to say about this. I have a feeling I'm onto something, okay? So Having said that, let's start talking to some people. Excuse me, I'm shooting a video for YouTube. Could I ask you guys a question? Just a little too to the degree. You hate it? Okay, that's okay.
I'm sorry.
Not that easy today, huh?
No, it's not. I'm wondering if I could just get a moment.
I've got too much
We're
time.
off to a very slow start. That's okay. Let's just change up the spot because I'm feeling like there's enough projections in that 100-meter radius.
See, this right here, I mean, this kind of has something to do with this video, but kind of not. This is why I never believe polls, especially political polls, because I don't know anybody who's participated in them. And it's never happened to me. I've never been asked to participate in a political poll. But if someone came up to me and was like, hey, can I ask you some questions and can you participate in this poll to let me know who you're voting for? I'd be like, yeah, it's none of your fucking business. And then I'd walk away, you know? So I feel like it is tough to get people to talk on camera. So I kind of feel for him in that. But that's also why it's a good example of why I never believe anything I hear about polls when it comes to politics, you know? It's just, that's how most people react here. They're like, who do you vote? It's none of your fucking business. And then you move on.
You know, I always feel really terrible that everyone's first attitude is, oh, you're from America, are you? Oh, okay. You know, which is always you always feel a bit bad about that because I'm not entirely sure why we still do that, but you know. Yeah.
How do you feel perceived as Americans by the British here in London?
A big, stupid, bellowing oaf. Yeah, genuinely. I always feel like I have to apologize for being American. It's like, I know my accent's the worst thing you'll hear today, but can I just order a coffee?
My experience, I feel like, has been a little bit different. I think that might be somewhat informed by the fact that I'm a student here. Okay. At first, there was a bit of a learning curve. Like, when I would speak loudly on the tube, I would kind of get looks, and people would tell me, like, you're being American, like, can you maybe not?
There's definitely sort of a sense that there is a lot of difficult things going on in America, and that America potentially could be quite a difficult place to live, especially if you're of colour or from the Middle East.
I have to admit, the inspiration to make this video came when I moved to Europe. As I've explored in previous videos on this channel, many Europeans have mixed to negative views of Americans as dumb and uncultured. But to my surprise, the same goes for the British. I've come to realize that the only people that see the British as intelligent and sophisticated are the Americans. Many Europeans, like the Portuguese or the Spanish, see a very different reality. The British, they go off on holiday to get extremely drunk and break things. The British...
Is that true? Is that true? I'm sure it's not true for all of you, but is there some truth to that? I know y'all like a drink over there. I mean, who doesn't? I like a drink.
That are isolationist with Brexit. The British that don't learn foreign languages, that stick to their native tongue. Wait a second.
That's us.
I thought to myself, that's what Americans do.
That's us,
Other
yes.
people do this.
That's us, man. I immediately thought that. Yes, we need to work on learning languages here. I've tried. I'm just terrible at it. I probably tried to learn a little too late, but I've tried. Me llamo Muppet. How about that?
This as well?
How dare they copy us?
I kid, of course. Still, it does feel like the Brits act like the Americans of Europe, but I am certain that is not something that they'd like to hear said about them. I mean, no offense. I am American after all. Does that not prove my point, though? No one wants to stoop to the level of Americans. I felt I had to get my answers directly from the source. My perception is that the UK is 1 foot in Europe, 1 foot like in the Americas. It feels like it should be in the middle of the Atlantic. Do you agree with that?
I think that's a pretty conclusive idea. Yeah, I think that's definitely true because a lot of people wouldn't even class England as being in Europe. You know, even in England, when you talk about going to Europe, no one ever thinks you mean Doncaster. They always think you mean Germany. You do get some perception that everyone's some sort of like a Valley girl accent or something like that, and I think that annoys people quite a lot. But then again, it's the same way that English people are often perceived as all sort of being from London. The American dream, making yourself better and being seen to be self-improving, and it's a lot about earning money and being the best you can and going to the gym and all these kind of things.
Do you think that's, are you saying it's positive or negative?
I think it's a positive thing for Americans, but I think the way it's perceived is often everyone goes, oh, get out of my face, you know, because they probably, no one likes to enjoy someone else's success, at least in England anyway. I think in America it's probably very different. Oh great, you got a promotion. Fucking bastards, you know.
Hey, I got promoted. Good for you, you fucking prick. I could get behind that a little bit.
Being American is like such a thing.
Right.
That I don't think other places have that as much.
I don't think people are necessarily dumb, and I don't think it's a question of being dumb. I think it's just that there's this idea of like, yeah, being the best. To think that like people in America, depending on where you're born, you can have access to care or not, it's frightening. And I don't know how you can speak about being the best when you can't even make sure that everybody's like taken care of. Are you treating everyone the same way in America? No, not everyone is treated the same way, just like not everyone is treated the same way in Europe.
Having been to America a lot, they often ask, obviously as a joke, but just like, do you know the royal family or anything like that?
So do you feel that generally, this big generalization, there's mockery towards the Americans and Americans towards the British is more like cute. We think you're cute.
Yeah, I would say that, yeah.
How do you feel about Americans thinking you're cute?
Well, it can be taken as a compliment, obviously, but if they think that we're, like, as a country, not really a force to be reckoned with, then just because we do all these, like, things that date back to long before the US was established, it's not really relevant that they can mock us for that.
Is it condescending, would you say?
A little bit.
Or ignorant?
More ignorant. It doesn't, like, hurt me. You know?
How do you feel Americans perceive the British, first of all?
They kind of look down on us.
You feel that?
I feel like Americans think like they're on the top of everything, and there's always competition between the two.
So do you feel like the British have a chip on their shoulder a little bit because of that?
Yeah, a lot.
What do you think the British are better at than Americans?
Being polite, really.
More polite?
Yeah. More talkative, more helpful.
More helpful. The British are more
polite? I don't know, man. I feel like y'all are polite. But then once we get to know you, then you start taking the piss out of us. Am I wrong? I don't know. But I don't know. For me, it's I feel like Americans who travel a lot, or at least a little bit, that go, to other countries and stuff, they're much more polite and nice because they want to see other places in the world. But the Americans that look I don't know any American friends of mine that look down on the British. I don't know a single one. But I imagine if there are ones like that, they're ones that have never even been there. You know what I mean? So it like you said, it comes more from ignorance than anything. But anyway,
more helpful.
Yeah, than Americans. But Americans are nice. They're funny. Got good music.
Got good music. Okay. Yeah. Well, the British have good music too, man.
Americans are taking over the music scene.
But I mean, come on. There's a lot of great British music. So here's the thing that I think is going on here. We are not the same, the Brits and the Americans, but we sure have a lot of similarities. Compare us to the Japanese, or to Native Americans, or to Ethiopians, and the differences between Americans and the British seems relatively small. We're like blood siblings in the village that is the globe. So here's what all of this started to make me think of. There's a concept in psychoanalysis. I'm going to read you the definition, but it's called the narcissism of small differences. This comes from Freud. The narcissism of small differences is the idea that the more a relationship or community shares commonalities, the more likely the people in it are to engage in interpersonal feuds and mutual ridicule because of hypersensitivity to minor differences perceived in each other. We see this all over the world, between the Argentinians and the Chileans, for example, between the French and the Belgians. And indeed, I think this is what is happening between the Brits and the Americans. But at the end of the day, I feel like we make the little things that make us different much bigger than they really are.
The way that we speak and the words that we use.
Yeah.
And again, we were talking about this, weren't we?
Yeah.
About
We've been talking
words.
about things like autumn versus fall. And it's like that's often something that people like bring up. And for some, well, it's because it's a simpler word. And it's like, fall, American.
You guys don't say
classic.
fall?
No, we don't say fall. We
Oh,
say
interesting.
autumn.
Okay.
So this is autumn.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. I didn't know that. You don't say fall. Never knew that. See? Learn something new every day.
But you can say autumn as well. All right, before I go any further, I want to quickly thank the sponsor of this video, BetterHelp, whose support like flexibility. I thought a lot more changing will better for continental Europe. But now, let's dive back in. Personally, when I come to the UK, I have the impression that I've come halfway across the Atlantic. I'm not just off the coast of continental Europe. And by that I mean, culturally, it feels so much more similar to the life that I had in the US. The convenience of life, the speed, the capitalism, the language.
Everyone speaks English. Everyone's like got the same sort of core values. I'm not necessarily a big Christian person at all, but we all come from this like Christian-based countries. America and Australia are English. There's some things that happen in history, but at the end of the day, we're kind of all the same group of people in that regard.
Culture.
Kind of agree with that. Hold on one second. Let's go. Come on. Come on. Must be a squirrel outside that she wants to stare at. All right.
Culturally influenced.
Culturally influenced by the same group. So I personally don't see many differences at all.
I mean, I've got wonderful American friends who I adore. So that question for me is a difficult one because I think they're great, they're fantastic. Yeah. I think the differences in the way our language is, in the way we use different words, that's where there's a difference.
So pretty minor.
Yeah.
Do you think that sometimes some of the British media or the portion of the British population that looks down on Americans, is it a way to deflect some of the issues that exist here? Could that be said of all societies?
Yeah, you can say that of all societies, but you can also say that about the media. They're always distracting, aren't they, from topics, whatever it is.
America's seen as very alpha male, if you think about it in terms of masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
There's an alpha maleness to Americans. And maybe it's just the way they speak, the accent, but you don't really have that sense of Britain. I think there's a stereotype of the repressed male, that soft-spoken.
Considering we're like right on the edge of Europe, we have more in common with America in many ways than we do with the rest of Europe.
Do you guys agree with that? You think you got more in common with us colonials than you do the rest of Europe? That's interesting. Maybe you do. Maybe you do. I don't know. We are cousins after all. Sort of. We were more cousins when we were first founded than we are today. But anyway, do you think we have more in common with each other, or do you have more in common with other Europeans? I'm curious to see what you think about that. Put it in the comments below.
In theory is where we should be more aligned. And I think there's sort of something that can feel sort of slightly odd about that, you know, like with the whole Brexit thing, breaking away more from where we're most closely connected to and sort of being in a situation where, you know, we're going to end up with chlorinated chicken instead.
Is that your biggest fear, the chlorinated chicken? You know, it sounds ridiculous, but knowing the things that some of our food companies put in the food here, I wouldn't be shocked if there was something to that. I'm sure it's not all chicken, but there's got to be something to that. She didn't just hear that.
There's this tendency to think of Americans as just, you know, they're simplistic, really.
Are you like annoyed by the Americans here in
Sometimes.
I wouldn't say
Depends how they are.
Now the interesting thing is I love to drag the US through the mud and criticize it for all the things that I think it deserves criticism for, but the second the Brits start criticizing me or the US, you have nothing to say. Kind of like I can criticize where I grew up, but you aren't allowed to. And the British, in my opinion, are doing their version of the same thing, criticizing themselves to no end, but no one wants an outside opinion. Maybe we all do this. I think we all do this. It's like pointing at someone else's.
That is very true. Like, you never, you never want to go into like a foreign country and then tell them how they should be fucking acting or thinking or how they should feel about things. I've seen videos of shit like that, and it just drives me up the wall. Once again, I think I talked about this in that one video where there was that one American getting detained by the police. Not arrested, but just detained for questioning, and he threw an absolute fucking fit. And he was such a muppet. But that particular one, it was like, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing? You are a guest. You don't live there. You're a guest. Okay? For me, I would just be happy to be there. Just to experience what it's like to be there. But some people can't, they just can't help themselves.
House when your own house is on fire.
So I lived in America for 6 years. I lived in California, Alabama, and Oklahoma for 3 years. Everyone hears my accent and is like, oh, where in America are you from? I'm like, bro, I'm actually from Australia, but then they give me their little opinions on American stuff. So I've actually had to play defense a couple times since I've been out here.
Are you serious?
I'm so serious. They talk about guns or they talk about this, but they don't have like a very good understanding, not just English people, just people around the world, even in Australia, of the history of America and why those things became what they were. People trying to, throw rocks and then hide their hands.
Yeah.
They don't want the blame to be on them, so it's easy to put it on the big superpower that is on everyone's TV.
My perception is I don't consider Americans necessarily lesser in terms of like lifestyle, culture per se. I just think it's a bit more apparent than it is in the UK, but the UK is just as problematic.
There's always sort of a sense in the past that like America was sort of, 2 decades ahead of what was happening in this country. There is a sense that we're getting closer in a time frame.
I would say younger generations tend to be a bit more, and the only word I can think of it is shameful of the heritage. I think it's a lot of things from like colonialization and things like that. There tends to be a lot more shame around it.
We're a small island, right? So we've got a small island mentality, but because we've got a small island mentality, we've got to overcome it by kind of that impression that we're the best. And I think that's changing, though. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a total reflection of society now, but I think historically it has been, of course. Let's flip the question. How
Rule Britannia. That's probably why some people think that, because from that tiny island, y'all controlled a quarter of the world, which is incredible. It's incredible. What's that saying? That the sun never sets on the British Empire? And now it's not the Empire anymore, it's the Commonwealth. But, at one point, that one island controlled a quarter of the world, which is mind-boggling. So, when you have a past like that, you're going to get some people who think, even after the empire is gone, that, you're still the most dominant people in the world. But, just like we have Americans here who think, America's the greatest country in the world because, we're the... And the only reason for it is because we are or were the dominant superpower in the world. I guess we still are, but it's that's why you have Americans who think that way. It has nothing to do with like, oh, we're the best at everything. It's just, that we have the biggest guns in terms of military power, you know what I mean?
how are Americans?
I hate that kind of talk. And I've heard it here at home, but anyway, let's get back to this.
Say it's necessarily a total reflection of society now, but I think historically it has been, of course. Let's flip the question. How are Americans perceiving the British?
My answer to that is there is a power dynamic going on. And for better or for worse, the U.S. is much more of a world superpower right now. So I don't think that the U.S. feels threatened necessarily, like competitive with Great Britain. Because of that, I think there's kind of like they're cute, you know what I mean? Like they're Harry Potter and James Bond and sophisticated and,
Use words like autumn.
Exactly. But I also think that there's also a major degree of ignorance. Like the U.S. is so self-involved. We're not even paying attention to what's going on elsewhere in the world.
That part I agree with, yes. Most Americans don't give a shit or don't even try to think about what's going on in the world, which is astounding to me because you have, people who support these wars overseas. Again, I don't want to get political or anything, but I'm very anti-war. And when I hear people openly talk about, we should put troops in Ukraine or, put troops in Israel, which are the two, foreign top places that people are very fiery about right now. And all these wars we started in the last 30 years, and for what? It's, for people who have never traveled overseas, and I'm talking about Americans again. For the Americans who have never traveled overseas, it just staggers me to see how quickly people are open to or downright supportive of getting involved in these foreign wars. It just drives me fucking nuts. It really does. So that is something that I feel angry about it and ashamed of for my fellow countrymen, because I can't believe people would still think that way, because, over that, what have we got to show for all those fucking wars we started in the past 30 years? What have we got to show for it? Nothing. But anyway, let's rewind a little bit.
That I think there's kind of like they're cute, you know what I mean? Like they're Harry Potter and James Bond,
cute,
and sophisticated, and
He uses words like autumn.
Exactly. But I also think that there's also a major degree of ignorance. Like the U.S. is so self-involved, we're not even paying attention.
I don't think you're cute. I think you're funny and creative, and you are the best. What's the term I'm looking for? Users of profanity in the entire world. I also think you have the best comedy shows in the world. And it's amazing how many accents you guys have. I remember 2 years ago thinking like, they got a few accents over there. No, it seems like you guys got hundreds of accents over there. But cute, I would never associate the word cute for the United Kingdom. Funny, fun, good time. But again, I've never been there. I got to get my butt over there to talk to some of you guys and have a beer at the pub.
To what's going on elsewhere in the world. So there's not even enough to form an opinion, Now, this video was definitely supposed to be in good fun. I harbor no ill will towards the British. I find
I would certainly hope
rivalries as human beings across cultures, across nations, to be comical and interesting. It's like an insight into human psychology. And despite all of the, criticizing going on here, I'd like to end on a positive note. I'd like to express my appreciation for a few things that I think the British do better than Americans. Your healthcare system, for one. Also, the Premier League. They say football was invented in England, and if that is true, as someone with Argentinian background, I can only thank you. I also have to thank you for your incredible music. What a contribution to our collective heritage. It is a foreign idea to me to have a royal family, but I respect the commitment to tradition.
But I did move here the week that the Queen died, so it was really interesting to see. I think my first impression of the British as a public was that of mourning for their queen, the 14-hour-long line to go see her lying in state. So I think it was a little bit of a shock. This might sound silly, but how procedural the British can be. I noticed that tends to be, every British person I've met tends to be very procedural, as opposed to Americans, I think, are a little bit more, dare I say, free-spirited or individualistic. So, I think that's not to say that one is better than the other.
And as a final note, we are obviously a world of individuals, and so stereotypes never fully work. Still, I find it so fascinating to explore the stereotypes and cliches that we have for one another. Not always, but often there is some sort of basis of truth there, or else they wouldn't spread and persist as they do. Anyway, having said all of that, I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please consider liking it, which tells the algorithms to share this with more people. I thought it was fun, and it's a format I'd love to continue exploring. And also consider subscribing so that you can see more of the material that I make. With that, I hope to see you soon. This video is good.
Whoops! Whoops. Sorry. Well, that was interesting. I learned that y'all in the UK say autumn instead of fall. I feel like that's the right way, though. I feel like fall is an American thing. Some people here do say autumn, though. But hey, what I gather from this is, in the end, we're all human. We all have our flaws. Doesn't matter what country you come from. We all have our, we all have our things we do. But nobody's better than anybody else, you know. I gather from the subscriber base on this channel that we just like to have fun, you know. Most of the stuff that I react to is comedy stuff because y'all know how much I love British comedy. It is superb. But yeah, you're gonna have, you know, you're gonna have, especially here, you're gonna have your rotten apples. I'm sure you guys have your rotten apples over there too. But in the end, the thing that was very interesting to me was bringing up the point that maybe we're more similar. Our two countries are more similar than any other countries in the world. You know, that was interesting to me because I've never thought that the British would think of themselves more comparable to the United States than other European countries. I never thought of it that way. So maybe there's something to that. If there is, please let me know in the comments below. But that was a very interesting part of the video for me. You know, fuck the whole Brexit thing. Like it's I don't think that had any if there is something to that, I don't think Brexit has anything to do with it. I think it's more that we have a common language, even though we do fuck it up sometimes, as you guys have told me. But I think it's more because we have a common language. We can understand each other for the most part because of the common language. And most of our, it seems like most of our television programming over here seeps its way into the UK. Which is not the case here. I have discovered all this television programming from the UK because of you guys, and I am so thankful for it because, like I said, best comedy on television that I've ever seen over the past 2 years of the stuff that I've discovered. And I've said this before too. It's like discovering British comedy in particular. It's like tapping into a gold mine that you didn't know was there, and it's just waiting you got a pickaxe and you're picking out all these huge chunks of gold, and you're like, holy shit, this was here the whole time, and you know, I didn't even know. So that's why I think this channel is so fun, and it's fun because I get to interact with you guys. You know, I interact with Americans every day. I don't get to interact with people from the UK unless it's on this channel, or you know, if you guys message me on Instagram or whatever. So that's always fun. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you guys liked the reaction as well. And I don't know. If I said anything that upset anybody, I apologize. But that was not my intention, just as it wasn't his. I think he was just going on a fact-finding mission. He did say he's Argentinian, though. Or he has an Argentinian background. So maybe somebody should ask him if he wants the Falklands back. I'm just kidding. As soon as he said Argentina, I went, uh-oh. He wants the Falklands. You can't have him, you muppet. But anyway, I digress. Hope you guys enjoyed the reaction. Like, subscribe, do whatever you guys want. And if you want to throw some of your thoughts in the comments below, by all means do. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Peace out, Boomerites.